Have you completed the forgiveness and gratitude list and exercise? It's really powerful and important before you move on. You know, it's often crisis that creates evolution. And if you were to ask a sample of entrepreneurs how they got started in business, they'll probably tell you that they got fired from their job. And I know that's what happened to me. You know, at the time, it wasn't a great feeling, yet looking back, it was probably one of the best things that could have happened to me. And you know, if I'm honest, it had been on my mind and in my thoughts to leave and do my own thing. The universe really just gave me a nudge. A few years ago, one of my clients, Don, told me that he felt that he'd reached a peak in his career, which left him with the question of, what next? What next? He felt like he'd learnt what he needed to learn, achieved what he needed to achieve, and he was feeling a sense of frustration because he had no idea where to head next and what to do. So he basically felt stuck in the role, the title and identity that his qualifications and certificates had placed him in. Now, unlike Don, and as I look back, I've held many different roles and titles, from advertising executive, legal conveyancer, promotional assistant, recruitment consultant, fitness instructor, yoga teacher, marketing manager, trainer, consultant. But I was never trapped into the identity of a specific role or job title. And do remember that right at the beginning of this video series, I asked you to make a list of all the titles that you currently hold and all the titles and labels that you'd like to hold. For me, whenever I got bored, I would simply look around and see who had a job that looked fun and exciting. However, several years back, I found myself facing a block, a brick wall with a huge what now question looming over me. There was also a feeling of angst and a continuous stream of unanswered questions like, what should I do? Who should I speak to? Should I let everything go and close the business? What is it that I still enjoy doing? And what's my life purpose? You know, in the end, the frustration was creating a vibration of being aligned with unanswered questions rather than aligned in a vibration with the solution. And my outer world became a reflection of my inner world, and the frustration, angst and anxiety manifested in a very painful way. What happened was I woke up on a warm October morning and I couldn't get out of bed. I mean, literally, I physically couldn't get out of bed. It was impossible to sit up or even roll over onto my side without a sharp pain shooting down my left arm, right down to my fingertips. And it was the kind of pain that, you know, kind of knocks the breath out of you. Now, at first, I was shocked and I wondered whether it was just pins and needles or if I'd slept in an awkward position. Now, eventually, with considerable effort, I got out of bed and I thought that maybe a few yoga stretches and, you know, spine twists would nudge everything back into place. Actually, I even went to a yoga class that morning, followed by a personal training session at the gym. Well, since that strategy didn't elicit favourable results, it was just too painful, the next stop was a chiropractor for a couple of, you know, clicks, crunches, and to realign whatever was misaligned. The next day, the pain shouted even more loudly at me, begging me to look deeper within. Yet I went back to the chiropractor and I confess I promptly burst into tears. I was in that much pain. Now, it's challenging to meditate and look within when you're kind of unable to find a comfortable position, when every micro movement elicits a painful shock. And I confess I wasn't brave. I cried and cried in a way that briefly halted the endless chatter from my dear friend, the conscious mind, who was intent on analysing what was occurring and bombarding me with another million questions. One evening, I remember, a group of friends from the healing community generously all stepped in to blast me with energy and healing. But you know, later that same evening, one of them took me aside and he said, Carol, are you aware that you actually didn't accept any of that healing? What? I thought, why on earth would I refuse help and healing when I was in such pain, distress and discomfort? But you know what? He was right. I actually hadn't accepted any healing that evening. I was holding on tight to an identity of being strong, of being a giver rather than a receiver, which incidentally creates an imbalance, and it actually dishonors others when they seek to give. And on that note, I remember a friend of mine, Stephen, and he'd always been able to help his brother out financially. But what happened was a temporary cash flow crisis meant that Stephen had no choice but to ask his brother for a loan, as the bank had denied his request. Guess what his brother said? Finally, at last you're giving me an opportunity to help you after all you've done for me. So just remember, sometimes when we are givers, we also need to be receivers and accept help from other people. Back to my challenge, an MRI highlighted I had desiccated discs in my neck along with trapped nerves. And the prognosis and treatment protocol that allopathic doctors dispensed at that time simply wasn't appealing to me. And so it was that I finally did ask for help from a space and place of ready and willing to receive. Now, arms and hands are usually associated with a lack of willingness to embrace life and create your desires, while the neck is connected to flexibility and self-expression. And guess what? We talked about forgiveness before. Pain also requires forgiveness. I'm going to tell you that I refuse to identify with either the pain or the desiccated discs. And perhaps you've heard people talk about my pain, my illness, my problem, or my accident. So instead, I experimented with the many tools and techniques from neuro-linguistic programming, timeline therapy, and hypnosis, creating new ways to connect to a much deeper level of awareness within. Now, personifying the pain, I spoke to it as well as noticing the language that I've been using to describe it. And I started using very powerful and positive language instead. You know, while language is the domain of the left hemisphere of the brain, what I did was I used imagery, which is actually the language of the right brain. Now, imagination is only possible with intuition. And guess what? Intuition grows stronger when you listen and act on it. So intuitively, in my mind, I began visualizing a ball of wool being unraveled to literally untangle the trapped nerves in my neck. Now, my intuition was spot on here, because I remember a few days after creating that image, I opened a book that recommended very similar imagery. Now, just as a machine needs to be oiled regularly, the body, the mind, the heart, the soul requires nurturing. And for me, the final healing took place several weeks later, when I put myself in the hands of two beautiful women who nurtured and cared for me with daily Ayurvedic massage at a retreat center in Kerala, India. Now, incidentally, I'd actually gone to Kerala to attend a program that proved disappointing. But you know, they say every cloud has a silver lining, so that gifted me with the opportunity to enjoy the healing and meditation available at the center. Now, you know, there's always a point and purpose to pain, and a strong indicator from the body's intelligence center that your emotional health is out of whack, out of balance. And I believe that the body is designed for self-healing. You know, after all, if you accidentally scratch your arm, you think nothing of it, knowing that the scratch will be healed and gone in a few days. The experience certainly accelerated my awareness and empathy for others, and allowed me to pay attention and express my emotions more fully. And you know, it was a gradual letting go of the old self. And while for some it could be perceived as a negative experience, you know, it's often in the negative experiences that you ignite a desire of what you do want, as well as create opportunities to evolve and grow. At both the conscious and unconscious level, my deepest desire had been to evolve and grow. And so the universe really provided the vehicle an opportunity for growth, although perhaps not in the way that I had expected. So maybe I should have been a little bit more specific about that. For Connor, another client of mine, it was a serious accident that allowed him to finally accept his sexuality and who he truly wanted to be, and to step into a new way of being. Now, I suspect that somewhere along the line, you've been told you've got to love yourself. Yet, no matter how many times you look in the mirror at yourself and say, I love you, it doesn't really mean that you do, or that your beliefs are supporting that statement. You know, to love and accept yourself for who you truly are, for most people, it's a huge challenge. Yet when you do, and when you recognize that you are indeed a manifestation of your creation, that's when you'll feel true freedom. And the liberation that Connor experienced after rejecting himself for over 30 years has opened up many opportunities for him, although members of his family still need a little time to adjust. Consider yourself as being stuck behind a slow driver, and you have a choice to stay behind that driver and go slow too, or you can wait for the right time to overtake. To let go requires a shift in gears and in many ways a death of the old self to allow for the new.